Alrighty.
We did it. We did it. With more rental listings than anybody else, it was just inevitable that you were going
Oh, that was an ad, my bad. Okay, so yeah, I was trying to stream earlier, but I was having issues, and then it was like um, my personal situation got in my way. So yeah, finally we're able to watch the H3 podcast and the Trisha collab, also known as Frenemies. And this is basically the entire timeline. So I remember seeing this in real time. It was crazy because I remember, when primarily Ethan, because Hila was more of a bystander in a situation. She was involved, but not as much as Ethan. But yeah, Ethan basically he started with roasting her. And after he roasted her, he kind of went back and forth with Trisha, and that kind of started the whole dynamic that they have now, or had, because right now they're divided. They don't speak to each other. They only make videos against each other or mention each other like that. But yeah, without a further ado, let's get started. And honestly, it's crazy. I want to say one thing before. I know I'm talking a lot, but a thing that I found crazy, when they were still on good terms, was they spoke bad about David Dobrik, and also Trisha was saying she wanted to expose David Dobrik, and there was like videos of her in the vlog squad where she was referring to, exposing them as well. The whole vlog squad, David Dobrik, since it's a cult, but for some reason, David Dobrik brainwashed everybody to think that he didn't start a cult, and after they kind of like broke up, frenemies, Trisha was like, "Oh, I'm glad, David Dobrik's back," because this one, after he got canceled, he went back. People forgave him quickly. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened afterwards. Like, Trisha just switched up at last minute, I guess, to kind of go back at Ethan. I'm not entirely sure, but, that's just something that stuck with me, in this whole kind of drama.
Have you guys ever browsed Instagram and wondered why everyone looks so beautiful? Why does everyone have such a perfect life? I'll tell you why. Because they're faking it. No! That can
This is the video that started it all. I still can't believe it.
not be the same person. Dude, Coachella versus open casket funeral.
You said I was like a corpse and like an open casket funeral.
Yeah, you did. Well, my friends, here we are. They said it would never happen. Me and Trisha making a podcast, and frankly, I thought they were right. But let me explain, first of all, what brings us to here, which is a pairing up very bizarre. I've been wanting to make a podcast with like another comedian for a while, and I don't mean that to compliment you. I think I mean like two big personalities. And in my mind, when I kept trying to think of people to do it with, I always thought, me and Trisha have a really funny chemistry. And I thought, well, fuck it. Let's just do it like that. Let's do it live. Fuck it. All right, we're done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We shouldn't have got pizza.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time and podcast, something that I have a bit of a patchy record on. In principle, there's always something enjoyable about being able to present a more raw version of yourself, being able to speak casually without having to filter your mind so rigorously. It's also a less demanding job in many regards, and although the result is never identical, you can go into recording with a clear idea of who you're presenting to the audience. For me, I guess I'll always be someone who requires the rehearsed nature of scripts to maximize my full potential.
I actually got a podcast, and I've kind of been neglecting it. I don't know, I just find, live streaming being more of my bread and butter, as opposed to my podcast. Because my podcast, if I were to be honest, kind of feels like a chore. I go into more deep talk and just going, not scripted, and just like going out, all raw, and just say what's on my mind when I watch content. I think, that's something that I've always wanted to do.
And although I'm not adverse to making appearances on podcasts here and there, I think I need to focus my efforts on my content first and foremost, given how I've regularly failed to do that of recent. However, it is a thought that has taken up residence in my psyche. What if I was to drop everything I was doing now, set up a new channel with the resources I currently possess, and do something that doesn't require me tearing my hair out? In a way, it's a decision that Ethan and Eda Klein, also known as H3H3 Productions, made a few years ago, when they decided to launch the H3 podcast. But let's rewind for just a moment in case anyone here is not fully acquainted with the YouTube Leviathan that is H3H3 Productions.
Game assassins out there, you think I was born looking this cool? No, I used to look like you, losing to noobs every day. That is until I discovered gamer gear.
If you guys saw like my first live streams, I was talking about H3H3, and yeah, I was saying how I was looking at the old content, and obviously I'm all for everybody changing, but it just seems weird that H3H3 criticizes others, what they once did, and they lack self-awareness. That's what my problem is. And it's also, coming out that Hassan, everything he stands for, he used to stand, what he represents now, which I find weird. I don't want to like bash him because, like I said, I'm open for everybody to change. But the issue is that he wants to talk like he's like morally superior, and that he could basically, criticize other people without, looking at his own faults. And that's what kind of annoys me, is that they want to be like they're like the ones in the right, but, they fail to see that they were in the same position years ago.
that get my fashion on point, and I never lose to noobs anymore.
Gamer Gear glasses help you see the game and look cooler than ever. And our trademark item, Gamer Water.
Dude, fuck yeah, man.
H3H3 Productions is the YouTube channel run by the aforementioned Klein couple. They established a presence on YouTube for content that often parodied their subjects, usually utilizing Ethan's offbeat sense of humor, alongside editing that put a somewhat amusingly absurdist twist on the content they were lampooning. Nonetheless, many of these videos also had an underlying moral message that resonated with many viewers, often calling out many of the creators of their time for their often shallow exploitation of YouTube culture. They're funny, they're well made, and many of them are still relevant to this day. They're videos I grew up with and will always find a place in my heart for.
Same with me. I can't even lie. Even the squad, like I said, they were even commenting how, and I found out about H3 because of them, because, you know, we would watch this stuff like daily after school or during school, you know, around lunchtime. They're always like a great pastime just to watch, but just like Ethan virtual signaling, it kind of rubs us the wrong way.
However, a few years ago, as many of you probably know, they themselves became center of attention after one of these subjects of their videos, a gentleman by the name of Matt Hoss, decided to sue them for copyright infringement. It had been regularly debated on how much commentary constituted fair use. And with H3's videos, there was an uneasy trepidation that maybe, if the ruling went in favor of the plaintiff, that a new gauntlet would be set down for further lawsuits in this domain. Fortunately, the case was won by our protagonists here, and they triumphantly returned to the platform, cheered on by the platform itself and many creators whose livelihoods seem to depend on the verdict. However, you can't really undo the stress that such a case would cause you, and in the aftermath, it seemed difficult to return to that content with the same sort of gusto that they previously bore. And it's hard to blame them. If anything, a lawsuit which requires such an investment would inevitably sap the fun out of the content that in many ways served as an escape at one point. So over time, they seem to distance themselves further from the formula they'd once been inseparable from, venturing into new pastures, including the one we mentioned earlier, the podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the H3H3 podcast.
I'll be honest, like, I didn't really mind the podcast at first. I was like, I could get down with this. You know, it seems something, you know, they're trying out. I was supportive of it at first, but afterwards, it just started getting annoying.
We're so happy to have you here, and we're so excited to bring the show to you guys. Today, we have a very special first guest, Justin Roiland, the co-creator of Rick and Morty, and a very close personal friend of ours. We're going to have a lot of fun today.
The H3 podcast was founded on the 8th of April 2017, with the first episode being broadcast on the same day, a few months before the lawsuit was settled. Its format seemed rather unexceptional on the surface. Ethan would bring on a guest, often someone with a pretty well-established media presence, sometimes a real A-list celebrity, and they would shoot the shit. It's a concept that's been tried and tested over and over again, and although not always yielding groundbreaking results, you'd typically expect it to be a mostly uncontroversial formula. And at the start, it certainly was. But then something began to happen.
I'm a pudgy little guy, and prank evasion literally just got out of prison for 3 years for some kind of sexual crime.
That is not. Well, it's literally.
Well, I don't know what he. I mean, no, it is a joke.
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to say.
It is a joke. What I'm saying. Do I need to say that every time?
Maybe once.
I think in a way it's a peril with any commentator that has a tendency to say what's on their mind at a specific moment. But something about H3 in the podcast environment didn't always hit the best notes with certain viewers and fellow creators. There were moments that just seemed a bit out of step for his image, and eventually people began to express their frustration, which generated controversy.
It's kind of weird because the subreddit, you know, he's showing posts that they were against, but they're pretty pro H3H3 and defend them and everything. It's weird.
Family says at her age.
I think it's with like the, you know, the rabid fans that they attracted that, they're like really ride or die, because it doesn't matter how wrong you are, they're going to be your ride and die.
The shock could have killed her.
Yeah.
She's recovering. You know, still a
Could kill anyone. Nobody should be tasered.
But especially.
Could kill anyone. No one should be tasered. But I'm always in defense of the truth and getting your facts right. And there are some things that Ethan said in this video that weren't factually correct at all.
Now, H3 often did take time to address specific dramas, even occasionally admitting their flaws and shortcomings and pledging to do better. However, they seem to also have an inexorable nature to be drawn towards the flame of conflict. And this is where we introduce the second character in this convoluted story.
That's my dinner. Love being skinny. I feel like such a DIY right now. If we can make this fettuccine pink, I will be so happy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hopefully don't get this all over me. I don't know what food coloring really tastes like. I don't think it's supposed to have a taste. Whoa, first of all, it's squirting literally everywhere. Can't relate. This looks more red, but the cap is pink. Okay, we're gonna try and not. This looks like not appetizing.
This is Trisha Paytas. They are a veteran creator and no stranger to this channel. It's difficult to talk about what they do at length because they tend to be more of a YouTube socialite at this point, renowned for their own involvement with the platform elites and dramas that these dynamics occasionally precipitate. They're outspoken, often unapologetic, and quite unpredictable. In many ways, they're not the prime candidate for the co-host of a podcast that seems to be trying to clean up its act. In many ways, they were the polar opposite of someone like Ethan, who seemed to care deeply about his public image. And yet...
Well, my friends, here we are. They said it would never happen.
It happened. In fact, its life cycle was longer than many probably predicted, with a total episode count just shy of 40. However, to nobody's surprise, there was still no lack of fireworks, and even when the podcast soared to its highest peaks, it could only forebode its inevitable demise. And yet it didn't even end there. In fact, it seems to have only escalated.
Bye, 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 bye. Ain't nothing but a different just another pleasure to game, but that's pretty good.
There's a lot more to the story of H3 and Trish's relationship that underlines the characters of both parties involved, a feud that long existed and will long outlive many other dramas. If If you're interested in the story, then I suggest we follow it a little further. But to unravel the story in its entirety, we need to first head back to 2019, where these two strangers first became acquainted, and sowed the seeds for their ill-fated podcast. Let's see how these frenemies became, well, friends and enemies. But first, ad time. The following ad is region and age specific, so if you're under 21 or live outside the
Wait, people were replaying his ad? That's crazy. I might look at it later, I don't know. The beginning.
2019 was a curious year for H3. Emerging from the drama of the previous 12 months, they had maintained a pretty
2017 basically was, how can I say this? It was essentially, I guess, the rapture for like edgy humor. I think that's like the best way to put it, since there was like a video that somebody summed up, you know, the career of Filthy Frank, or as you guys might know him now as Joji. And, you know, I actually have respect for him, and it makes sense because during that time period, 2017, and that's when I graduated too, which is wild. So we essentially, you know, the squad and I, we grew up on this edgy humor ourselves. And afterwards, we basically, you know, had to mature as well. And I get, you know, we all should change. We just can't, you know, keep on doing the same edgy humor, as it's not really, you know, sustainable. Like they said, if I were to be honest, you know, I like humor that has no boundaries, and, you know, they just break it. But at some point, I think you need to evolve with your audience. And PewDiePie is like the best example of somebody that's done that. But then you got people like H3, iDubbbz, that they want to clean up their act, which, you know, I'm fine with. But when you try to put other people down for the very same thing you guys were doing, it's like when it becomes a problem.
pretty strong upload schedule on both their podcast and their main channel. These videos certainly didn't evoke the energy of the main channel's supposed heyday, but the truth is that times have changed, and so had they. However, one video seemed to be a departure from not only their previous content, but in my opinion, their channel as a whole. Comedy has certainly evolved on YouTube, particularly in the last few years. There's a lot of talk about what jokes one can and can't make these days. And although there's definitely been a clampdown on certain creators in the commentary genre, there are still liberties you can take. And on the 8th of May 2019, I'd say H3H3 Productions exercised those with a video named Instagram versus Reality.
Have you guys ever browsed Instagram and wondered why everyone looks so beautiful? Why does everyone have such a perfect life? Why is everyone having so much fun, has perfect skin, is always laughing and smiling? Why is my life so boring as I sit here in my underwear covered in breadcrumbs, sad and alone? Why? I'll tell you why. Because they're faking it. That is not you. The one on the left is on the beach, the one on the right just washed up on the beach. Oh, damn, Tana's looking pretty good these days. Oh. Oh, I can't believe it's the same day. She looks like a Twinkie.
Now, as the title implies, it's about how many individuals tend to airbrush and edit their content to make it conform more with society's superficial standards surrounding beauty. On the surface, this is quite a progressive message, and there's nothing overtly wrong with calling that out. The video itself doesn't pull any punches when addressing these individuals who are thought to be.
Yeah, like, I get, like, kind of going after, a lot of the girls. It was unwarranted, I get that, but at the same time, they were being problematic. They were getting away with doing, like, some really stupid stuff. So, in a way, it should have been addressed, you know, calling them out. But I think roasting them kind of, like, what made it not age as well, I guess, if I were to be honest. But, you know, the message is basically kind of exposing, like, the fake reality, you know, that social media creates just to seek validation and make others envy you.
Be participating in these shenanigans. One of those in particular being Trisha Paytas.
This girl tried to use a face filter on Instagram and her phone blew up. Here's another one of her. Ah, she is the best. Isn't she not the best? Would people even recognize her if they saw her on the street? I mean, she is unrecognizable. This is Coachella versus throwing down in the McDonald's parking lot at 3 a.m. This is Coachella versus World Star Hip Hop. No, that cannot be the same person. Dude, Coachella versus Open Casket Funeral.
I have a lot of thoughts on this video as a whole, but I don't think it's necessary to the story we're constructing. All I will say is that at the time, regards to Trisha's own reputation, this video did draw a bit of backlash. I think the main reason is because although it is completely fair to attack society's beauty standards and those who prop it up, attacking that person's appearance somewhat undermines the message in people's eyes, because then you yourself are using those standards as a stepping stone for your own point against it, which seems somewhat contradictory. How you interpret the video ultimately comes down to what you think of these people's intent, whether they are just another victim of unattainable beauty standards or they're knowingly contributing to that toxicity. If you want commentary on Trisha's own intent, however, we are guaranteed to at least receive it from one source, Trisha themselves.
I would say it's both, because Trisha, Hannah as well. They came from broken homes, and I guess they, were part of trying to, get to these beauty standards, but also kind of exploit that toxicity to other people to kind of live that life too.
Himself.
Do understand that there's so many more things that go into it than just stop eating, start exercising, stop being lazy. That is so much more to it. Oh my God, if people could even understand 10% of the mental struggles that a lot of overweight people do. I'm going to speak on myself. Like, if you could even be inside this head for like a minute, and to see why I use food as like a coping mechanism, like, and it sucks.
Now, Trisha had already responded once to Ethan's comments the previous year relating to society's beauty standards when H3 had made comments surrounding the model test holiday. It was clear that there was some disparity between the opinions each held about how they think the matter should be approached. But with the crosshairs shifted towards Trisha, the spotlight was firmly on them to respond. Trisha first put out a series of tweets that attacked H3 for their video, calling it predatory and harmful, and labeling Klein a disgusting piece of shisa. Nevertheless, of the belief that such tweets were not sufficient retribution for the Klein's misdemeanors, Trisha uploaded a video further chastising H3 for their comments and depiction of sensitive issues that could impact many young girls growing up.
Hannah's body, like her photo versus her reality. I mean, he literally on one of my photos said she went from beauty queen to a monster. And like,
in very typical Trisha fashion, it takes whatever valid criticism or responses could be made and blows them wildly out of proportion. Additionally, it meshes a variety of points together, including technical points about whether photos Ethan compared were taken on the same day, or more emotional points about how this has affected them and other vulnerable individuals.
You're not taking something from that day and showing it like from a video clip in the same hair makeup. You're taking all my photos he showed. One he showed a side by side was what I posted myself to show like how different. My whole point of that post is to be like, yes, I can be glam and I feel good about myself, and also I can be like how I was looking, just like selfie down, like not the most attractive. And I was doing that to show like, yes, to show what I guess he was trying to prove, but he did that in such a way of like, it was bullying. It really, really upset me. It really upset me.
It's not that I don't understand how such comments could upset someone like Trisha if they feel as vulnerable about their appearance as they present. However, as a public figure, you're going to be the butt of these jokes. And Ethan's point, whether you agree with it or not, is that all of our appearances are flawed and that trying to cover it up is only going to do more harm. This was a difference in perspective that neither side was going to compromise on, because they both seemed to believe that they were starting from the righteous premise. Trisha in empowering girls to post pictures of themselves online free from stigma from judgmental parties, and Ethan in tearing down the unrealistic thresholds of natural beauty pushed by many of these people. There was never going to be a compromise. Yet it could have just ended here. Instead, though, not happy with the response their video was receiving, Trisha pursued the feud online, once again escalating the comments, now directing them at Ethan's wife and child, providing some invaluable couples counseling on their marriage as well. Ethan, unfazed by these comments, continued to dunk on Trisha and the Photoshop employed in their content. At this point, Ethan took the W because he avoided taking the comments to the personal level that Trisha did, and maintained his stance pretty staunchly. This is where the direct interaction appeared to end, though, with Ethan delivering a final address to it on his podcast a few days later.
I didn't know who she was, to be honest with you, but I guess she's actually quite a big YouTuber. She has like 5 million followers or something. And so we put her in the thumbnail because her comparison was just so epic to me. And nothing personal about her. I don't know anything about her, obviously. But I guess she has a knack for dramatics. First is, why are you on your kitchen floor? There's got to be a better setting for this.
Although brief, this exchange highlighted the contrasting dynamics shared between the two. Trisha, a person who really behaves on that emotional whim, the person who will readily bare their teeth at those if they wish to and take their comments to places that many would consider beneath them. Ethan, on the other hand, may make provocative content from time to time, but also has a grasp on his own opinions, and in this case maintain control of the conversation, not falling for the outrage bait set by Trisha. Trisha Page has said before they will often chase the behavior that garners them the most attention, but in this instance they kind of hit that brick wall, where they didn't manage to elicit a rise out of their opponents. With this in mind, barely a couple days after their explosive rage, their tune changed, and they began posting somewhat strangely worded praise for Ethan, even asking if they could make an appearance on their podcast. As far as I'm aware, at this point they had not collaborated, so this tweet may have been a bit tongue-in-cheek, though I have to say I'm not sure where the tongue or the cheek are, but I digress. This was the first time that Trisha had signaled interest in collaborating on the podcast with H3H3. However, this interest wasn't initially reciprocated by the Kleins, who didn't respond to these tweets and continued with their routine podcast schedule, seemingly paying no mind to Trisha and their antics. However, if anyone thought this quarrel in question was quite quelled, well, they were in for a little shock.
That was an epic collab. I totally didn't anticipate it. Like, this came so out of left field. But I think I enjoyed it. I think deep down she enjoyed it as well.
Something about Ethan's comedy and Trisha's desire for attention seemed to bring them together, and as the capers continued to increment, these characters were set on a collision course that could not be averted.
Yeah.
The great experiences you have in here, and even
Over the next few months, not too much of note happened. There was the occasional acknowledgement or mention of either party, but otherwise it seemed that this had mostly cooled. However, all this changed when Trish decided to post a video coming out as transgender.
So in my head, I feel like I'm a transgender female to male, but also like a drag queen. That's kind of how I've like rationalized it in my head. Because like, okay, let me just tell you why I identify as a boy more so, and from an early age. I don't like to be center of attention, except when I want to be center of attention.
Once again, I think we can keep this relatively brief. For this video was met with a lot of controversy for how it handled the subject matter and the communities that it references, regardless of whether Trisha truly was transgender. The day after, in light of the less than supportive response, Trisha posted an apology video, which unfortunately seems to have been lost to the sands of time. This was once again received fairly poorly and provoked another response on the H3 podcast.
She just kind of describes like a lot of people. She says, I don't know, some days I don't wear makeup and I just wear comfy clothes.
Trans.
And
That means she's trans.
I really relate to men, and I like to hang out with men more than women. And so therefore she thinks she's a guy.
So take a guess what happens next. I'm telling you, it will shock you. Trisha took to Twitter to insult Ethan. However, in a twist, this time posting some rather sensitive images that we shan't go into detail about. Ethan responds fairly unamused, and then Trisha brings up Hila like clockwork. Oh, and what would the situation be without a Trisha video?
Apparently, she came out recently as a trans male, so I guess she knows something about. Although I bet you Trisha's got an enlarged that's bigger than my.
Hell yeah, I do.
She's one of those weird girls. Like, she's got like an engorged.
Yeah,
like this.
it is meaty. I have a meaty ass. It is so meaty and tight.
Yeah,
It's
I remember
like
this.
a roasted sandwich without the beef curtains.
However, this time, instead of the dispute dying a death like the previous altercation, Ethan responded to the Twitter publication of the video by inviting them on the podcast, if they were man enough. At first, Trisha, seeming hesitant to commit, requests an advance payment of $18 million, a fairly regular sum for most H3 guests, I'm sure. However, Ethan calls Trisha on their bluff, stating that they'll do it for free. Chief negotiator Trisha then makes a minor amendment to the conditions, stating that they may appear if Ethan apologizes for all his dumbass trolling, something which Trisha is obviously a stranger to. A few days later, on the 16th of October, Ethan uploads another video which includes a parody apology to Trisha, modeling their often melodramatic setup, providing the implication that negotiations had perhaps broken down.
I wanted to basically apologize to Trisha Paytas, who is such a sweet, genuine person, and I just really, I wanted to, first of all, apologize for saying that she looked like she was at an open casket funeral, like she was the corpse inside of a casket. That's not true. That's just not what I meant at all. You're so beautiful. You're such a queen. And I also wanted to apologize for saying that you have, like, a 5 to 10 inch engorged clit that's bigger than my dick. That would basically make you a guy. That would basically mean you had a penis. And, well, I guess I'm kind of confused because you said you're trans. I don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't want to offend you. I know that. I'm sorry for saying that you're not trans. God, man, even though you have, like, cup F jugs that are always on display.
With the unpredictability of Trisha, it would be normal to assume that this interaction would fizzle out like many others have. However, in a surprise turn of events, approximately a fortnight later, a photo was posted on Twitter that showed the two parties together alongside a link to Trisha's debut on the H3 podcast.
Well, first of all, Trisha Paytas is here. Are we here to squash the beef or roast the beef?
Ooh, I would love to squash it, but I like you guys talking about me, so maybe we'll.
That's what I figured. Thank you for saying that.
It's now and a half of the two parties addressing and appearing to mostly settle their differences. And on one hand, Trisha handles themselves pretty well, in fact responding to certain questions with a degree of eloquence not typically associated with them, such as certain gender-related queries, where their responses actually add a lot of nuance to their prior content on the matter.
A lot of people are transphobic. Me coming out transgender is not going to help my dating life. It's not going to. Why would I put that on myself to hurt? I'm trying to date. I'm trying to get married. Why would I put that out there just so people can look up that I'm a transgender if I truly don't believe that?
It always fascinates me how the internet can be surprisingly hostile to those who may just be expressing confusion. And although Trisha did make some insensitive comments, their confusion was nothing to write off on their own basis. In fact, I think many only responded the way they did because it's Trisha. The podcast allowed them to make their own defense, and I think that was a positive thing. On the other hand, though, it kind of reminds me of James Merritt's interview with Nick Avocado. You appear to have two parties engaging in casual conversation. However, when you know both parties relatively well, particularly Trisha, you begin to pick up on certain details that others may overlook.
I think
I love Jewish people. I get excited. Sorry.
Thank you. You love.
I go to Israel all the time because I want to find a Jewish man, but they won't date. Like any Jewish guy I like fuck, they can't marry me. They tell me straight up the bat, like I can't marry you. You're not Jewish. I'm like, oh, okay.
I think they may just be saying that as an excuse.
In this part, Trisha says they go to Israel all the time, which just isn't true. It's such a trivial detail to lie about, so trivial that you don't feel like it's worth even pulling them up on it. When it comes to other points, though, Trisha was caught with their trousers down.
Okay, I'm not trying to expose anything that's private, but
it's all demonetized.
Hold on. Where is it? Apology, and then it's coming up regarding my. I am transgender. 3 million views. Green icon. Monetized. And I'm going to tell you exactly how much money she made. She made $8,000 for that video.
It's a fascinating watch in many ways because it outlines that character that Trisha Paytas has cultivated and places it in an environment where it can receive direct scrutiny. I do want to save some analysis for the end of the video, but it certainly illuminates how differently Trisha views the consequence of their own language and behavior in comparison to a lot of other creators. However, this podcast appearance wouldn't be possible without two people, namely Ethan and Hila.
I mean, clearly not all men are violent. I mean, like that.
Yeah,
but some are.
And a lot are cheaters. A lot of perverts. That want to fuck underage girls. Like, yeah.
So, are you ever afraid that it might be your choices drive these bad characters into your life?
My choices is how.
And men, the men you're attracted to.
I feel like I date everybody. Like anybody wants to date me, I'll date them. So I feel like I'm not picky. I just date whoever wants to date me.
So maybe the image you put out to the world attracts the wrong kind of guy.
I've heard that. Oh my god, this is like therapy now. Oh my god, so deep. You are like a dad, even though you're only 34. You're like a 40-year-old dad.
Ethan has the energy of an accommodating yet critical host, and although patronizing and slightly presumptive at points, he doesn't just endlessly grill Trisha like some probably would. He lets them say their piece and challenges when he feels necessary, catching them out a few times. At the same time, there's this still somewhat standoffish nature between the two parties, particularly with Hila's presence, who still seems somewhat skeptical towards Trisha, and their nature to fluctuate between flirtatious and insulting towards Ethan.
I love that we're on a three-way date right now. We're like eating and talking. We're like
wait,
coffee. Ethan is the worst. I had to say that. You're kind of just the worst. I think Hila.
Oh, wait, hold on. So you hated me. You came in liking me more, but now you hate me again.
It's a mesmerizing experience. these two internet veterans dissecting an individual who has in many ways occupied the spotlight for so long, yet seldom been understood by those attacking them. By the end of the podcast, although it felt like any dispute had been placated, you weren't really sure if there were seeds for a future relationship. Some tension in the air still lingered, and with everything in mind, that was to be expected. But somewhere deep down, there was the potential for something truly great. And I think
You may not think of yourself as an athlete, but you do athletic feats. The joint
people knew that. As I mentioned at the start, Klein had been involved in a fair bit of drama relating to how he handled himself on the podcast, but also how he interacted with guests.
And he also had a zillion kids, so I mean, yeah.
Really? How many siblings?
Bro, this Bill Burr podcast is awkward. Ethan really got finessed on this one. I kind of think he needs somebody like this, you know, like Bill Burr, just to like humble him again, bro, because like when, you know, his ego's tripping, you know, it's going up there and people seem to forget.
I don't know, dude. The internet's too fucking weird to give out all that information.
Oh, you don't even want to say how many because you're afraid that it will
Yeah, by all means,
compromise
keep
your
talking
privacy.
about it. Is there any way you can cut this out? I'm honest, dude. Like,
Seriously?
Yeah, no, dude. Yeah, there's fucking lunatics out there.
Okay.
Well,
Off the air, I'll tell you.
all right.
Jeez.
There were a lot of theories as to why this was, but many at the time were under the impression that he was not a naturally talented podcast host, particularly when he appeared with certain people. And that's completely fine. The transfer from video content that can be scripted and edited to a podcast where you really have to devote your full attention towards each and every moment can be an exceptionally difficult one. However, sometimes it's about who you're doing the podcast with. And Trisha Paytas was someone that you never ran out of questions for. And if you're an inquisitive person like Klein is in a way, then it was quite easy to maintain an engaging conversation, even if it does seem more like a case study at points.
Like anything to me. The squid I got is like a transparent squid, so it just didn't taste like anything. It was a while ago. I mean, I used to eat like goldfish as a kid. I used to like swallow goldfish, so I don't think you're supposed to do that either. But I would just eat the fish out of the bowl.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. I thought it was honestly food. I was young. I was like 5.
For a while, it seemed like this was the most confab we were going to see, as the two turned back towards their own ventures over the following months. Until the start of 2020, that is, when they returned to the podcast for another session of antics.
Yeah.
Love this. So it's like a
1985.
throuple.
It's not a throuple. It's definitely not a
I think of it
throuple.
like parents, but now I think of it like throuple. But I feel like this is me and Eli are getting along good.
Please don't think of it as a throuple.
It's like a little date right now.
Definitely not.
No.
One of the constant struggles that Trisha has been quite open about on their channel is their often fruitless endeavor to
Oh man, this felt awkward, just like saying, like, you know, like the whole kind of love triangle. It just felt awkward.
find a relationship. And during their appearances on the 2 episodes of the podcast, Trisha had a nature to make certain comments that seemed to seek validation for intimacy with those they were around. These include the numerous rather pointed flirtatious remarks towards Ethan and referring to the podcast collective presence as a throuple. Ethan and Ela weren't completely sold in this dynamic though and had their own plans for Trisha going forward. The year prior, the clients had conducted a dating game of sorts with an individual known as Ian the Intern, where they would peruse dating profiles and attempt to set him up with some lovely ladies. They compared this setup to the show The Bachelor, a show that I am unfortunately completely oblivious to and have very little interest in learning about. Unfortunately, Ian seemed to undermine the show when he messaged one of the participants and then decided that he didn't
I'm
want
not
her to come
really
on
a
the show.
fan of
Nonetheless,
all
the
those
concept was a hit
shows
with
like The Bachelor, Bachelorette. They have that at the gym all the time. I'm not really into those shows because it's not, it's, you know, all this reality, you know, TV is memes. You know, if you guys like it, that's fine, but it just feels weird just to have this fantasy, like, to a certain extent, you know, it's okay, but when you start like fantasizing and obsessing over like reality shows, I don't know, it just feels like you're out of touch of reality.
The audience, so clearly the clients thought they would bring it back for season 2, this time branding it as The Bachelorette with you-know-who in the starring role.
Trisha back here, and the reason that Trisha's joining us today is, as you all know, Ian's had a season of The Bachelor with a H3 instead of a capital H and a 3. Bachelor.
Oh my God.
And so Ian actually found true love on his season.
That's myself.
We had some ups and downs. We had some controversies, but in the end, Ian has been dating a girl for how long, Ian?
For about since last September, around there, October.
Since last September, Ian.
Wow.
So he's in love.
And you met him on the show?
Yes. Yeah. So the show works.
Wow, I didn't know
The
this.
show works.
Oh, I had no idea this was a thing.
And so we take this very seriously. Love is very important to me and Ela and our community. And we thought Trisha Paytas. Now that's the next season of The Bachelorette.
With so many eligible young gentlemen falling at their feet, it was clear that Trisha was spoiled for choice. However, Trisha seemed to have eyes for one person in particular.
I thought, I don't know if I can say this, you can cut it if I'm not supposed to say this, but I was like low-key hoping, because originally I was pitched the idea to come on as a contestant, and Ela's brother's gonna be the Bachelor, and then I thought maybe he would apply to be on my Bachelorette.
He was supposed to. I don't know what happened.
He said that he wanted to apply.
I found his Instagram. Fine,
We could take a last-minute submission.
I don't
He
know
said
what
he
he
wanted to.
did.
I think he's honestly super busy. He's like a fucking mega hard. He's like a He should make time though, right?
He should make time. He looked so hot. I was like low-key impressed. I was like, holy shit.
We'll make
he was strikingly hot.
Okay, we'll make sure.
This is Moses.
Right,
He's an
looks
Israeli
so
born artist and
awkward.
architect who is relevant enough to have his own Wikipedia page, so that must mean something. He is best known for his work Faces of Water, which uses an artistic technique involving liquid iron. All in all, he seems like a reasonably talented artist who possesses some prestige in his field of operation. However, he is also the brother of Ela Klein, and a bachelorette entrant that Trisha seemed quite drawn towards. Trisha had been known to have a somewhat strange interest towards humans of Jewish background, and therefore it was probably not particularly surprising given their reputation that they liked Moses. However, it was still a strange dynamic, and one that Ela at least didn't seem too eager to foster.
Make sure we get his application.
Now I am drenched, so you might
Oh,
tell it.
stop. Are you really? But why? We just were talking about it.
I was looking at Instagram. Oh my god, this person's cross-eyed, how a giant
No,
press
but
on.
I don't know. I don't want to listen.
There's so much.
Smells like sardines in here.
So fucked.
Talk to me, baby.
All right, so
Sorry.
all right. Well,
I'm excited.
well, yeah. This,
Oh, that dog to me, baby. What was that?
it's excited. We'll get Moses in here too. Now
Moses.
that's his name. Yeah.
Fuck that name. That's crazy.
Okay.
Better fucking Moses. Holy shit.
And he looks like Jesus. The hell of a thing.
Like write
So
the commandments on my pussy.
sorry about that.
Bro, Ela feels awkward. Oh my god.
His name is Moses. He might spread your Red Sea.
Oh, is he into that?
Yeah, he'll eat you out when you're on your period. He's into that.
Oh my god, bro. Why is he having this talk? It's so awkward to have like on here, and Ela's like, you could tell how uncomfortable she feels.
Right now, I want to go deal with him today.
The rules of Bachelorette were set so that Trisha was advised against contacting any of the participants privately, particularly with the season 1 incident in mind. However, if they were to do so, there would be full disclosure with Ethan and Ela. It seemed there was some understanding between everyone that would help make the show a success. But then it happened. Yes, lockdown, caused by our good old pathogenic friend. And the H3 podcast was put on hold while they worked out a new arrangement compatible with the then present restrictions. However, even if the H3 podcast was on hold, there was no stopping the Trisha show, who decided that they had to take matters into their own hands. And just over a month after the launch of the Bachelorette season 2, it came to an abrupt
On her
end.
Instagram stories, in bed with somebody.
Yeah.
And
just in
we see a
arms.
hand, and I'm like, again, cryptic. I think that's his. I think it's his arm. It looks
Could
like
be.
It definitely is. But the evidence piles on as we continue forward here. She posts pictures of, she says, quarantine date night. Okay. Now,
Okay.
so let's just, okay. This is a separate day. So whoever this is come back to her house, a date night. She calls it a date night, and whoever it is brought dinner.
Yes, on March the 23rd, Trisha posted pictures of them with Moses, with the somewhat oxymoronic statement that they were social distancing together. Ethan did not see the funny side of this, but Trisha continued to openly flaunt their rendezvous, much to the dismay of Ackman's sister and her husband, with them asserting that Trisha had ruined the show with their mischief.
I have to tell you that I don't know what he's up to.
Right.
And
I don't know
this
anything.
isn't some inside joke. Like,
No.
look at the way he's looking at. So this is what Trisha posted. Look at his face. What is he doing? It's like he's goofing on us. Like, look.
Well, it's hard to tell. 'cause
Nice place, by the way, for Trisha. Nice view.
You can't tell. I don't
Hollywood
know.
Hills, by
It
the
could
way.
be just him smiling.
Bro, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know what's my biggest fear right now? Is that this actually becomes serious. So both of these people promised me to keep it 100 billion with me.
Yes, they promised.
Like, I'm most disappointed in your brother. Trisha, whatever. We serve at her pleasure. I mean, you don't know which personality is showing up on which day. I'm just happy when she comes in.
I mean, I expected her
turn
to work within the guidelines too.
Your brother, though, is on our side, and now I don't know whose side he's on.
Needless to say, I can understand why the two were frustrated, notably given that this was the second time this had happened. However, when you're dealing with love, you can't really put a contract on it, and this was going to be inevitable with something as loosely structured as The Bachelorette, and with someone like Trisha. This was just not a great idea from the start, and the circumstances only exacerbated that. Although in many ways Trisha was the perfect podcast guest, their appeal was also your Achilles heel. They were not a person who was going to play by your rules. So when you impose these sorts of expectations on them, then you need to manage your own expectations as well. That doesn't mean you can't find it frustrating, but it's somewhat inevitable when you deal with someone who you know is notoriously unpredictable. H3 needed to think about this, but in the meantime, chaos reigned once more.
Spectrum, America's leading internet and mobile provider, is bringing you seamless connectivity across all your devices. Introducing Spectrum One. Spectrum Internet with speeds of 300 megabits, advanced Wi-Fi, and one line of Spectrum Mobile Unlimited, all for $49.99.
Although in a way, it felt like Trisha was closer to the Kleins than they had ever been, this only really intensified the tension between the creators, who openly criticized each other over the coming months. In the meantime, to cement their commitment to the relationship, Trisha began learning Hebrew, and yes, uploading videos on the matter. When the relationship was good, it was great, and the Kleins were trying to break an inseparable bond between soulmates, and when the relationship wasn't working out, the Kleins were the cause of its demise. They really couldn't win.
It just sucks because it's like I'm like losing them too, because I really started trusting them as like friends, and it's like cool to have like YouTube friends, like people who get it. And so it's kind of cool to have them as like this like ally with me. We had beef and then kind of like made up and had like a playful relationship, but then they started becoming assholes again and doing this shit. I mean, like now I don't know. It's like, it's not, at that point it's not trolling. Like I'm not there. It's being an asshole. They're not reaching out to me. They're not asking me. They're just being assholes.
Ethan and Hila seem to display some semblance of disapproval, though I think there was a point where you have to begrudgingly accept that there is very little you can do to control a person like Trisha. Trisha is someone who will put their own impulsive desires first, and will only play your game when they have a chance of winning. And as Trisha said themselves, they won.
Of course, so many people are like, Trisha, that you're not Jewish, and to that I say I was not born Jewish, but I tend to gravitate towards Jewish people in my life that have taught me a lot.
Once more, it went rather quiet for the next few months as the stalemate seemed to persist between the parties. However, with everybody involved still one degree away from each other, there was that sense that the dating show was far from the last we'd see of them together. However, they'd really need a catalyst to bring them together. Who or what on earth could do that?
But the internet, there's nothing going on the internet, so I decided to have you on anyways.
Sounds good to me.
Well, allow me to introduce two new guests to this very fun little house party. Gabby Hanna and our beloved Keemstar. Gabby Hanna is no stranger to controversy herself, and is a common talking point for many commentators. Her feud with Trisha Paytas is no less contentious, with Trisha accusing Gabby of slander and harassment, even threatening to take a restraining order out on her after she allegedly told Trisha's boyfriend, Jason Nash, that Trisha had herpes, as explained in their now-deleted video, Why I Don't Trust Gabby Hanna.
When me and Jason started hooking up in 2017, I did a video called, like, YouTubers I've hooked up with. She, by the clues, guessed that I was hooking up with Jason. I was. She texted Jason, and she told Jason, or I guess, I don't know if she texted him or told him in person, but basically she told him, hey, be careful, Trish has herpes and you're sleeping with her and blah, blah, blah. Gabby, have we slept together? Did I show you my STD results? Are you my doctor? Did you swab my vagina?
Gabby did not debate that she had told Nash about the possibility of herpes and testified that she was merely warning a friend about certain health risks. However, she challenged the claims of harassment and stated Trisha was attempting to blackmail their mutual friends, and since then any spirit of friendliness has been extinguished, with Trisha making further videos asking Gabby to leave them alone. To put it lightly, they're not chums, though some may be forgiven for thinking it's just another Paytas drama, and there's nothing particularly exceptional about it. Keemstar, on the other hand, well, honestly, I would describe Ethan's attitude towards Keem quite exceptional, at least for Ethan.
Keem, Clownstar, I know you're watching this because you're obsessed with me. You're on every word, and your blood is boiling. You're thinking to yourself, how am I going to destroy him? How am I going to make a Twitter rant and then find some shit? This guy literally got it. I don't need to keep going on about Keemstar, but it's not the first time he's just made actually slanderous lies about me, but that is that.
Ethan and Keem have a long history on YouTube, mostly hostile, with the occasional ceasefire when a great force united them. But at the start of 2020, H3 released 3 videos that sought to malign Keemstar from the platform once and for all, even criticizing those who willingly associated with him.
Keemstar's got a bottle of G Fuel somewhere in his house that's actually a Horcrux. How is G Fuel still sponsored this guy, by the way? G Fuel brought to you by false pedophilia accusations. Check it, G Fuel.
Get it now at gfuel.com.
Keemstar responded to these videos with his own perspective, framing Ethan as a dishonest, opportunist hack and all-round hypocrite who didn't really care about the issues that he was speaking about. There are a lot of
that could be debatable. I kind of feel like he is, because just like everybody that Ethan, threw under the bus, that's kind of how I feel about it.
And opinions that one can have about this mess of drama. However, one thing I would probably say that if you were familiar with either of the creators, it was unlikely to change your opinion on them. At its core, the videos were a showcase of how much these guys truly detested each other, and this continued over the next few months, with nobody really emerging as a clear victor. So what is the relevance of these two people? Well, you see, in September, bored as hell at the fact that there was no news, Keemstar decided to invite Gabby Hanna onto Drama to talk about writing a diss track on Trish, which, as you can assume, went down like a lead balloon with our good friend, who sent multiple tweets to Keemstar, platforming those who they had deemed pieces of, even going as far to imply that their life could be on the line over this matter.
Hey, Keemstar, from one fat to another, get your together. Don't blame Gabby Hanna for my death, because she's mentally ill. You have no idea why I had to hire 24-hour security, you sick. You think bringing up drama is all fun and games until you're egging on a mentally ill person. Saying I'm sorry, saying I'm insane, I'm scared for my life, you dumb son of a.
Now, it's hard to really establish a motive for why exactly Keemstar decided to have Gabby come on Drama Alert. Maybe he was genuinely bored, but Ethan appeared to back Trisha's response, while continuing to speak ill of Keem. Keemstar noticed these and subsequently went off on Twitter about it himself. After this went nowhere, Keemstar reached out to Ethan offering a truce, framing it as the smartest thing to do.
In the coming months, more people were educated and they realized, oh wait, Keemstar's right. H3 is a bad guy. And now you're losing, and I'm winning. But the truth of the matter is that there's no winner, right? We both lost. The lesser of the loser is not the winner. This is stupid. And we're both going to continue to lose the more we fight. And the smart thing to do is to make peace. I'm inviting you on Mom's Basement, my podcast, to attempt to talk this out and to make peace. If you don't want to come on my show, I'll go on your show. But we need to make peace. This is affecting our companies, our careers, and not really my mental health, but you said that it affected your mental health, so it's time to make peace.
Hypothetically, you can understand why Keemstar wanted to do this, but logically it was something that H3 was very unlikely to agree to. Maybe Keem knew that, and he wanted to appear to be the reasonable party. But Ethan wasn't one to negotiate with someone he wanted to truly present as a terrible person. Given the lengths that he had gone to emphasize how bad a person Keemstar was, and still was at that point, he had more to lose by patching up the drama with our bearded buddy. However, what happened next seemed to cement his position.
I've been wanting to make a podcast with another comedian for a while, and I don't mean that to compliment you. I think I mean like 2 big personalities. And in my mind, when I kept trying to get people to do it with, I always thought, you know, me and Trisha have a really funny chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
On all of your visits.
Right. Well, yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, fuck it. Let's just do it like that. Let's do it live. Fuck it.
Oh, but this isn't live, though.
No, it's just
okay.
On September the 15th, Trisha made their return to the H3 podcast. However, this wasn't just any old appearance. From the way this was presented and discussed, this was the start of a new era, a series featuring both Ethan and Trisha, where they discuss various dramatic and miscellaneous content, whatever took their interest, based on that core appeal that had worked so naturally before. Although many
Yo, somebody from Seattle called me, and I don't think it was a scam, because it was a scam likely. So, I don't know what's going on.
have been brought on by their mutual dislike of Keem. They refrained from mentioning him until the end of the show.
We can talk about Keemstar. Whatever you want.
Love you. Much drama alert. Should we shout it out, promo?
Drama alert?
Yeah. What up?
You want to give a shout out to Drama alert?
Nothing but love.
Yeah.
We're all peace and positive.
Yeah, Keemstar's the best.
It was welcomed with open arms by their audience, but with circumstances and characters in mind, I'm sure many wondered if it was going to survive beyond a couple episodes. Ethan and Trisha's working relationship often seemed born out of a mutual cause, and it's not that a cause like that can't be worthwhile, but the question is what happens when that cause is ultimately fulfilled, like it was with The Bachelorette. If this podcast was the result of other factors like Keemstar, what happens when the influence of those factors inevitably lessens? There had to be something deeper between Trisha and Ethan. But could they ever find it? Well, let's talk about the centerpiece of Ethan and Trisha's tumultuous relationship.
Earn your degree faster at Purdue University Global. With over 175 online programs.
In a way, Frenemies was a concept that was constructed off Trisha and Ethan's established rapport. The fact that on one hand they'd had friendly conversations, they'd had productive discourse on certain matters, but they'd also had their fair share of drama and fallings out after they had seemingly reconciled. The question on many people's minds was, how do you keep a podcast going with two people who may hate each other on a certain day, who may not talk for months? Well, money maybe, but even then, if you're not really committed to something, it tends to show.
Well, I mean, she's they come from a conservative family. If you knew their dad
He didn't like you. I knew that.
Yeah, he didn't like me. He thought I was crazy. I mean, imagine what they would like, and you're like way crazier than I am.
Am I though? Because
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. Well.
However, from the first episode, there clearly was a commitment involved. They even had their own personalized set to contrast between the two creators, Ethan on that brooding dark side, and Trisha with their pink-spirited jollity. I mean, to be honest, that's not an accurate representation of their style, but I suppose that is the sort of energy they tend to emit, at least. In that introduction,
I might have to end early, bruh. I know I keep cutting off, but yeah, I'll continue this